started. Welcome everybody to our Contractor Academy class, Understanding Hiring Goals and Workforce Recruitment with Miss Katrina Ward, the Director of Workforce Initiatives with Community College of Denver, and Mr. DeWanta Parks, the Park Project Liaison with Denver Economic and Development and Opportunity Center, otherwise known as DEDO. Welcome, guys. We're happy to have you present. And we want to also thank our platinum members from HCC, JAPES Phipps, Iron Woodman Construction, Kiewit, Mortensen, Univision Colorado, and Turner. Here's our list of our board of directors, which can be found on our website, our HCC website. One of the board chairs, Omar Moreno, should be joining soon. And then again, we want to tell you HCC's mission, which is to build opportunities to strengthen and sustain our members' knowledge, connections, and voice within the public-private sector in the Colorado construction industry. And with that said, I will let Miss Katrina Ward go ahead and share her screen, and you can start with the agenda and we'll jump right into it.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for the introduction. And we knew this was going to be a small class today and an opportunity to really dig in on an important resource for contractors. And I think we are small enough that we could actually go ahead and introduce ourselves to help the team understand a little bit more about the specific resources that each of you are most interested, so we can really customize what we're talking about with you tonight. So I will kick it off with our welcome and introductions. The first piece of why we're here together in this unique Contractor Academy session, the first time that Contractor Academy, as I understand it, has really focused on a specific workforce development resources, and I believe it's a very timely topic. I'm going to briefly introduce myself and let my fellow presenters this evening also share who they are and their interest in this topic, and then we'll give the contractors that are with us this evening also a chance to weigh in. So again, we can really look at this as a very intimate conversation. That's what I love about Contractor Academy, having the opportunity to apply and really dig into personal needs that you have in the work that you're doing. So we are going to be able to do that this evening, which is exciting. As you heard in the introduction, I sit at Community College of Denver, but we actually provide backbone support for a construction employment platform that is now about 4 years old and has over 2,500 members from the local Metro Denver area who are new entrants into construction and also experienced construction workers looking to build their skills. We're here to help people find and keep good construction jobs, and we're here to help contractors tap into those education resources and community resources that help you attract and retain workers. We have worked with workforce hiring goals on public projects and private projects. We've worked in civil, commercial, and residential. And the advice that we're going to be sharing with you this evening on not only workforce requirements as well as tips come from organizations we've worked with all across the country, as well as our 25 partners here in the Metro Denver area. So we're really excited to work with you this evening. For part of the session tonight, DeWanta is going to be joining me. And DeWanta, I'll let you introduce yourself, and also Lenny, also from the Work Now team, Elena Jimenez. DeWanta?
I feel like he's walking.
Yeah. Getting settled. Maybe Duante, while Duante's getting settled, Lenny, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good evening. I am Elena Lenny Jimenez. I'm the Assistant Director at the Center for Workforce Initiatives with Katrina, and I help coordinate efforts across our navigators and business services team.
And Duante, if you're able to connect and would like to introduce yourself. If not, we'll have you do that later on.
Yeah, sure. I just had to change. The lighting was not really great. So, hi, my name is Devontae Parks. I'm part of the Denver Construction Pilots team. I'm running up into my third month now, and I think I've really got some good information on the back end to really help everyone with when they're trying to apply for these construction contracts.
Great. We're glad you're here. And those of you that are contractors in the audience, I'm wondering if you could introduce yourself, your company, and also share with us your biggest current pain point. This could be the piece that you're struggling with the most right now in understanding workforce requirements, or potentially expanding your own workforce currently. Or it could be the thing that made you sign up for this class tonight, the piece that you most want to get out of this session. Since we're small and we can be more conversational, let's take a minute to introduce ourselves. Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela Spalding and I work with FCI, and I'm currently working on the Green Valley Ranch Pool project. Kind of my first experience with the program that is involved with this project. And I'm attending this because I'm trying to learn everything as I can. This is also part of the requirements is the workforce. So I just want to, tap into everybody's brain and get as many ideas as I can. As far as the hardships that I'm going through, the project that I'm on is a 1-year project, and I've got subcontractors that are going to be in and out that already are fully staffed, and I'm struggling with hiring on a temporary basis, on a full-time basis. I'm just struggling with that portion of it. Because, I've the pool, we've got a guy that's building a pool. He's located in Colorado Springs, and, he's going to be in and out of the project. And so I'm asking him to please, let's hire somebody that's within the community. And, it's just a bit of a struggle. So that's, I would like some insight on that. And that's it. Yeah.
We are going to get that this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah, hello. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Sarah Bremer. I work for Kimball Mechanical. We're a mechanical contracting company, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. In the state of Colorado, we currently don't run electrical yet. But our biggest need right now is hiring and investing in licensed plumbers and retention and stuff like that. So I think our biggest thing is trying to find places that are worthwhile to invest in. So we've been doing community outreach with high schools, and I've seen Lenny at events and different things. So just kind of breaking into new ways of recruiting, because we've done all of it word of mouth through our guys. And yeah, so anyways, that's kind of our struggle, is just finding, everyone's having a struggle finding, talent. Yeah.
This is true. All right. Well, it sounds like we're going to have some time to dig a little deeper into both of those topics today. And if anyone else, Lenny, maybe I could ask you to help me. If anyone else, I know there were more that had signed up for the course from what I heard from Contractor Academy. So if anybody else joins, maybe we can just make sure they have the opportunity to introduce themselves as well. So, again, why we're here tonight is to spend a little bit of time looking at, first of all, what are workforce requirements? Why are you seeing them more on projects? And what kind of benefits do they offer construction companies, whether you're large or small, as well as knowing and understanding what some of the challenges are with these types of programs. And then we want to spend some time really digging more into expanding connections around workforce resources for contractors. So really digging a little bit deep into low cost or no cost talent development activities, as well as talent attraction and talent recruitment. Is really the time that we're going to spend. And again, since we're so small, I really want this, and we also know each other. So I think we can be very conversational, and feel free to jump in. We've got some specific tips to share, but I want to encourage you to also share with each other things that you've done and worked. So, I think it's not going to come as a surprise to either of you that, we are seeing tremendous growth. And if you give me just a second here, I will move into more of a slideshow mode, which might make it a little bit easier to see. And that also means you're going to need, I can no longer see the chat. So if you do have a question, you'll need to unmute yourself and just jump right in and ask. So you do know that significant industry growth, you've seen it in your companies, is driving two things, both the competition for talent development as well as new workforce policies. We're seeing significant, AGC's most recent contractor survey is reinforcing expected industry growth that has over 40,000 vacancies, primarily in the skilled trades, but also in the professional growth areas. We're also seeing significant investments in infrastructure development, and these combined with workforce shortages are really leading particularly public owners, but some private as well, to look at how they can link workforce policies specifically to support more equitable growth when they are asking for funding to invest in public projects. And what this means for businesses, particularly small businesses who are competing with your peer companies, as well as larger GCs and primes and related industries, is that limited pool, which was already shrinking because of different demographic data, becomes significantly more challenging for a smaller business when you think about that competition against some of your fellow companies, as well as the rise of these hiring requirements. So what we want to do tonight is talk a little bit about specific solutions for those. So what are some kinds of workforce requirements? I think most of you are familiar with some of the ones that we've seen through the city of Denver and other local public municipalities. The airport back in 2000 was one of the first to really look at target hiring in our area. And we see it play out in a couple of different ways, locally and nationally. First off is an emphasis on hiring connections from target populations or local areas. In some communities in Metro Denver, for example, what that has looked like is local hire policies on some DOT projects, for example, CDOT Central 70 project, which was looking at specific neighborhoods that were going to be directly impacted by the construction of that project, and ensuring that there were not only small business opportunities for bidding, but also hiring. But it doesn't stop with just zip codes. Sometimes projects will look at specific populations. The city of Seattle, for example, routinely sets gender equity goals. They're really looking to increase women in the industry. And so they're creating opportunities for women in their target populations. LA does a lot of work around families and individuals that are receiving workforce training or temporary social services support to also then get connected to specific construction training and employment. So one example of what these requirements could look like is target populations or target zip codes. Now, these are sometimes on federal projects. This kind of calling out of zip code or residency is prevented. And that's when we see some of the special population pieces come in instead. You might also see a general emphasis or a specific set percentage goal that must be reached in order for the contractor to receive an incentive or to avoid paying a penalty. On CDOT Central 70 project, for example, it was a mandatory set percentage. It wasn't an emphasis or an encouragement to make connections. It was a 20% goal to unlock a broader incentive that would come back to the prime and all the subs on the project. You also sometimes will see set percentages of utilization of apprentices or trainees on projects. So not looking as much at hiring, but looking specifically at apprenticeship, number of apprentices on a site or hours of apprentices worked. We'll typically in workforce requirements see hours worked as opposed to individuals, or it could be training partnerships. So Angela, you had mentioned, I'm not sure if hiring is going to be able to work on this project. You might really want to think about what does training look like and special training partnerships if apprenticeship isn't a fit on the work that you're doing given the nature of that scope. And sometimes we also see in terms of workforce requirements, specific required training partnerships. So not hiring goals, but an RFP or an RFQ might outline, we encourage you to work with this partnership, or we encourage you to develop a training partnership that focuses on this population as opposed to a hiring goal. All of these we're seeing more and more on not only federal public projects, which is where people typically expect to see them, but also on private projects with the rise of community benefit agreements. And really, again, that increased emphasis on what does equitable development look like that encourages hiring and business opportunities for a broader connection across our communities. And so again, what we want to do tonight as we initially kick off and help dig a little bit deeper into what are these workforce hiring requirements is really, again, understanding what some of those are, understanding a little bit about what some of the benefits and challenges are related to those opportunities, and then digging a little bit deeper into specific tips when you're writing an RFP. And then the second part of this conversation tonight is really going to focus on those specific resources. You've won it, so now what do we do? How do we meet the goal? And again, I just want to encourage, in case any of you have joined late, because we are a small group, we are inviting questions and dialogue throughout the presentation. So please jump in if we talk about something that's not clear, or you want to double click on, or you'd like to ask some questions about. We're here to make sure you get the answers to your question, and feel free to share your unique situations, as Sarah and Angela already have done. So again, we talked about a couple examples of what those requirements look like. Here's a few benefits or reasons why we're seeing those. So it's not just the tremendous industry growth. There's a growing body of research that really emphasizes that workforce hiring requirements on public projects creates more opportunities for individuals who are in training programs to connect with those high wage, high growth jobs that sort of jumpstart workforce pipelines. So if an industry is consistently seeing shortages in specific occupations, this is one way to make sure that new workers get attracted to an industry, and we're not just turning over the same workers with contractors consistently bidding against each other to get the workers and increasing salaries incrementally to exchange the same workers. This is one way to expand the pool and really help contractors build their future workforce and connect supply and demand chains a little bit more effectively. But they're not without their challenges, as you may have experienced already. Some of the most common things that we hear from employers or from primes as they're considering how they want to implement is concerns that the requirements may impact project scopes or timelines. And we can say from our experience, if your company does not have an effective plan or a deep awareness of what the plan is for the prime who's on your project, if you're a sub to them, this is indeed potentially the case. There could be some additional time or costs involved if you're not prepared to capitalize on this opportunity. And they do often require oversight as well as some data tracking, which can result in additional paperwork. Now, again, if you have that effective plan, we're going to walk you through some tips to minimize that paperwork. And in any workforce program, there will also be resources to help address that. But it is important to just understand those are some of the challenges that you may face if you're bidding on a project that does have those. Now, locally, some of you have seen this come out through Dewante when he introduced himself, talked a little bit about his work with DIDO. The city of Denver is one of the public entities. CDOT is another one. We understand the city of Aurora is looking at potentially attaching some goals to specific projects that they're working on, as well as DEN, the airport. And certainly CDOT continues to look at it for new projects as well. And with all this opportunity, with all this growth, over 7 billion, you know from your direct day-to-day experiences, there are workforce shortages. And so one of the places that you are going to see these is on the Elevate Denver bond projects. And I'm going to let Dewante give just a really quick overview here of how workforce goals are shaping up on those projects. At the start of this conversation, we kind of outlined some of the different samples that you might see. And Duante, if you want to tell us a little bit, again, we know it's a little bit different on every project, but in general, what is the Denver Construction Careers Pilot trying to achieve for the city and for contractors bidding on city projects with those workforce goals?
Thank you for the introduction, Katrina. So our goal is to strengthen and train in job placement for large public projects, building income and wealth for residents today, while we also build Denver workforce future. So there are different targets that we want to look at, and definitely provide some form of wealth equity for individuals on these different projects. And then I'm just going to talk about what's currently put in place for the DCCCP team and in the current projects that's already in place, right? So 15% of the construction hours performed on registered apprenticeships need to be allocated, within that 15%. 25% needs to be allocated to 25 hours of residence in target areas and target population, and the other 25 needs to be by first year apprentice. So it has key metrics as it goes through, and then as you're looking at different contracts or different ideas or RFPs, you'll be able to figure out what it is that you're able to do and what you're going to have issues with. This is where circulating into Work Now or even circulating to the DCCP team is what's going to be extremely beneficial. But in some of our key metrics, I'll even talk about it now as far as the outreach and engagement, is veterans, formerly incarcerated individuals, TANF recipients, history of homelessness, history of foster care, Work Now members and graduates of pre-apprenticeship programs. So everything that you're going to have, whether it be in the contract, is going to be spelled out. It's all going to be spelled out, and that's things that we can definitely assist and help you with.
So Duante, if I'm to summarize, there's two different goals that people bidding on projects might see on the Elevate Denver bond projects. And that's, I heard you say, apprenticeship utilization, as well as some target population. And it's not every project, right? You do have any project over a certain dollar value. What's that dollar value?
So the dollar value that we're looking at is it has to be over 10 million. Anything that's going to be under 10 million, I mean, the criteria is definitely going to be modified and shifted. But these are things that will be clearly defined once working in this space. So you'll have enough resources, whether it be, like I said, Work Now or even the DCCP team, to help you navigate in some of those issues or possible roadblocks.
Great. All right. You're going to hear a bit more from Duante in a little bit when we get to some general tips on this first part of our conversation around workforce requirements. So, again, if you're thinking about bidding city projects, this includes work on the National Western Center. This includes Elevate Denver bond projects. That's a couple of Denver airport projects as well, but certainly not all of them. And again, that benchmark is 10 million and higher. You're likely to see that. What we want to shift to a little bit is giving you some tips and also hearing some of your tips to share with each other on how best to bid projects. So you look at the RFQ or the RFP, you've been to the primes meet and greet, you want to bid this work, you've pre-registered, you qualify with them. What are you going to do? How do you prepare? And Angela, since your company was successful in winning one of those bids, I might ask you to think about also anything you particularly did in that process to address this.
Unfortunately, I wasn't in the bidding process.
Oh, you weren't there. Okay.
No, kind of wish I was.
Well, in the future, here's some tips, and then
I'm talking to them.
Great. We're gonna go through some of these, and then Lenny and Duante also have been on reviewer teams. They've also worked closely with businesses who are preparing proposals in general, and they'll share some additional tips. But here's some of the top recommendations that we consistently make to contractors, whether you're a small business or a general contractor. And the first is to really know, or to make sure, to Angela's point, make sure the person who's bidding your work, because sometimes it's a business development specialist and not you, right? Make sure they know where your current strengths are. Filling workforce requirement goals isn't always about brand new relationships. It could also be about deepening your current relationships. And that's one of the fastest ways to get started and to show good faith in this type of work. So you, first of all, really want to, as you're writing that proposal, think a little bit about, what are some of our current relationships that have worked really well over time? Is there anything we want to revisit? Is there anything we'd like to expand? The other thing we really recommend that you do is understand the aim of that workforce goal.
Mhm.
What is that policy? So in the RFQ, your business development specialist who's writing this proposal is just going to see the, mandatory 10%, not necessarily all of the background information. And so we really encourage you, or have you encourage your company, or if you're the business owner, to just take a minute and go to that public owners page where they talk about this goal, why it's important to them, what does it mean to them, why did they put it in place? Is it a pass through on some specific funds, or does it relate to a specific priority? Because when you understand what their aim is, it's really going to help you target what you can do as a company or as a sub to help a general contractor perform it on the project. That helps you identify how you can meet that goal. And if a contractor is trying to decide between two subs, if there are requirements on the project, they're typically scored on the proposal, which means you could bring more weight to the proposal overall, and you're going to have that competitive advantage. One of the biggest things we encourage people, and this comes after sitting on a lot of review committees, is overpromising. The underdeliver part, I may not know yet until you've worked on a few projects. And then, as you know, people in this industry very quickly get a reputation. But the biggest thing you can do in that proposal is not to overpromise. Be really realistic and also be honest about challenge areas or potential concerns that you might have, provided that you bring those with a proposed solution. Most project owners, whether they're a Department of Transportation or a city, are bringing these goals to the table because it's important to them. And that means that you are also important to them, a successful contractor. And they want to work with you to find that solution. And that happens more effectively when we're honest and transparent about where we think we're going to struggle and where we think we're going to have success. When I'm reading a proposal and trying to make that recommendation, I'm looking for people that are understand negotiation and compromise and creative problem solving. And you want to really make it clear, even if there's something you're concerned about, that's the kind of commitment that you bring to your work as a company. Most of us know how to write proposals to perform the work on time and under budget, but this is a new component, and it's a really valuable thing to be able to stress. Again, building on an earlier point, you really want to talk about what you already do to attract talent. What are some of your most effective strategies? Some of the most effective proposals I've read gave little mini case studies of work they've done in other areas or partnerships that they really learned from and enjoyed. Show us what you're already doing that's working. You really want to be clear with your timeline and your target outcomes. So a sentence that simply says, we are going to hire 10% of the workforce and exceed this goal, doesn't give me any detail about how you're going to do it and how you're going to stage it to make sure that you have success. And so it's really important to do that clear target outcomes and timeline. Also know who the company lead is on this work and what their specific role is. City of Denver actually asked for this in their RFQ. You need to identify a point of contact. Both CDOT and Denver asked for some type of workforce plan. And so it's a subs goal. If you're not the general contractor or prime, you want to see who is the contact on my project. Do they have a plan already set that I could read and look at to understand how I might be able to be more competitive in my proposal, or help their proposal, if you're pre-bid and you're trying to join a team, help their proposal be more competitive. And if they don't know, come to sessions like this, or sit down and grab a coffee with Dewante, or go to breakfast with Elena and I, not while you're under active bidding process, absolutely not. But while you're somebody who wants to build your knowledge and learn a little bit more, there are people in the area that are willing to help you expand your knowledge, or help the team member that's going to be responsible for this work expand the knowledge.
Let me ask a real quick question. When you talk about proposals, on a normal basis, when it's the 10 million and above for a project that has a program like this, is it typically hard bid or is it typically negotiated?
City of Denver might be different, Dewante. I don't know if you want to jump in on that. I know that for most of the private and public projects that we've worked on, it's been like a best value bid, which is not usually, hard bid.
Right.
But Dewante, City of Denver might be different, and best value certainly, scoring rubric, cost is certainly a factor. Ability to perform is usually one of the factors. Workforce is a growing percentage factor there as well.
Kind of my point.
So that's definitely, I'm not really into that space right now. That's more of a Marcus kind of question that he can answer on that one there. Because I was used to, like everyone else, on the opposite end. So yeah, that's more of a Marcus's question.
Gotcha. I would say, based on the committees that I've served on before, it's typically best value. And if it's not, if we're going dollar value only, to your point, Angela, they usually identify it up front.
Okay. I'm just curious because, and again, if we're just chatting as friends, to me, the best way to go about something like this would be to do the best value so that everybody has a chance to really dig in and work with the subcontractors prior to them giving numbers, so that everybody's on the same page. Just from what I've learned, that would just be my simple, humble opinion.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
First, before we kind of open it up to broader tips, any questions about any of these pieces? I know you may not be directly on the bid team, but these general concepts, any questions about any of these? Or where you would go to
I would definitely, if I was, part of the bid team, which I have been previously in a previous company, I would definitely read front end of the spec, see what's required. That would probably be highlighted. I'd find out more information, see what the requirements were, understand it, and then make sure that we talk to the subcontractors to know that they're bidding something like this. So, and I don't know how we did it because I wasn't involved with it, but you just on the top, that's what I would do.
That's great. Anyone else? Any questions about any of those? While you're thinking about those questions, I will also invite Dewante and Lenny, from your experience, what other top tips would you have for contractors, large or small, who are, working on a proposal or in the early stages of setting their workforce plan for work that they've already won? How can they be successful?
Lenny, you want to go first?
I think just getting the message out to the community early makes a huge difference. That's one big one that I could think of off the top of my head.
So I got a couple of them, especially if you're trying to reach some of the targeted populations, and if you're having a hard time, reaching the not target population, but if you're having a hard time reaching the employees or workers, WorkNow, some of the community organizations that's here, we have the Workforce Center, the stuff at Dido. Like, there's a ton of different opportunities to definitely help you get connected to the people that you need. Another thing that is extremely huge now is we see that a lot of primes and subs are, being very overzealous about contracts. And this is something that Katrina had talked about before, promising big and not being able to deliver. Something I would say is if there's a requirement with saying that you have to have X amount of people or whatever the case is, whatever the population is, to put up some process in place to make sure that you have strong metrics that where you can actually follow that. Like, for instance, if you have to have first year apprentice, how are you going to track the first year apprentice? Because if it's in the contract, believe it or not, and if it's something that our team is kind of handling, we're going to ask you, where's the first year apprentice information? How do we plug this stuff in? So that's important to make sure that you have the metrics to be able to track the populations that you're working with. That's huge. That's huge. But out of those two, I mean, those are some of the things that I've seen throughout my time here, and this is within 3 months or so. But I really see those as standing out.
That's great. All right. So we'll end this section on specific benefits of workforce requirements to really focus on, what are some of those benefits for those program project requirements for you. The first thing you'll see as a contractor, if you're getting that scope or you're getting their RFQ and you see that it has workforce requirements, yes, some of those challenges that we talked about early on do exist. But the one thing that you really can count on is this is going to incentivize collaboration across community workforce partners, particularly in the kind of program that Denver is rolling out, where there's a segment and a large section of projects with expansive goals. They're really going to be incentivizing partners working together. We also want to think about what this means for you as a contractor as an expansion of resources to attract and retain talent. You're going to see more kind of incentives, and that's the part that we're going to transition into now to help you as a contractor really build what you need to attract and retain your workforce. We're also going to see more support for training needs. So, whether you're a contractor that supports registered apprenticeship or whether you're not and you're doing different types of training, this kind of partnership and relationship adds more to the table for that. And the final piece that you're going to see as a contractor is growth of resources for general industry requirement, low cost jobs. You're hearing my daughter perhaps in the background. We're going to talk just a little bit about some of the specific resources that you'll hear about in just a few minutes. But that is clear benefits that you're going to experience as a contractor. So we see in our work and from the employers that we work that certainly the benefits and the opportunities to grow your future workforce outweigh some of the challenges that you might experience. And to be successful in this, it's really important to just know that both are coming and to really dig into the benefits and the resources, which is what we're going to spend some time really working on right now. And I apologize, Lenny, do you think you could cover this slide on the first step of attracting talent, the low cost solutions, some of the specific pieces? I need to get something for my youngest daughter who's here. And then I'll jump right back on and get to the next slide, which is attracting talent with some no cost solutions, which we also want to dig into. And this especially is the portion of our conversation tonight where we really want to dig in and ask some questions and talk to each other about anything that we might want to know a little bit more about. Lenny, are you good with covering this slide?
Yep.
Maybe giving some examples of some of the folks from the network that we work.
All right, cool. So yeah, going into low cost solutions. So there's a few, right? Connecting directly with a training partner or interns for new hires on a consistent basis. And this is also not just training partners, but local colleges, like how we run out of the Community College of Denver, we've done that also. And joining registered apprenticeship programs for new craft talent or to train new hires. We've partnered with a few different apprenticeship programs, and then we've helped to build a few different programs as well. And so obviously working with WorkNow is also a benefit. Considering, oh, this is a good one, considering small incentives for existing employees to refer individuals who stay a minimum of time. So maybe like, you know, if you stay the first 60 days or something, and you make a referral and a friend comes on and they stay 60 days, and having incentives in that way really makes a huge difference. We've seen that word of mouth is probably one of the best ways to get employees in, for sure. And even incentives for going into training on the job, and partnering with someone on that also, because we've done that as well, and that's been really successful and fun to see for, you know, if the company can build up a program for one day, and maybe they pay, you know, like a Friday and a Saturday, and the company pays for the Friday, and Work Now, you know, can help incentivize for a Saturday or something like that. Really helps to keep people on, keep them motivated, shows that you're showing, you know, have an investment in them. And then for office or marketing support, using interns, high school career tech programs. We've seen that before too. College interns preparing to graduate. There's a lot of folks that are looking to get experience, and an easy way for you all to capitalize on that also. Yeah, so those are just some of the ways. And then I would say too, one other thing we've seen is, you know, if companies can or already have a texting option, that's probably one of the best ways to get in contact with people, sending out incentives, sending out, you know, pieces of the benefits programs through text, and they can send those to other friends. Even more effective than email or calling. Texting is really the way to go too. So we've seen that a lot. Let's see. Openly advertising your opportunities with community organizations. Word spreads really fast in local community, and people want to know that they have someone they can trust, and that, you know, their friends and family are working for people and companies that are invested in the communities that they're building in also. So that's a great way too. And then, you know, going to not just hiring fairs, I would say, but, you know, cultural and community events where people aren't even expecting just to look for jobs, but where, you know, everyone's in really good spirits, and they may not see contractors at those as often. So it's going to stick with them a little bit more. Yeah, we talked about incentives a little. Yeah. So that's a few of the ones I could think of. And it looks like we might be going into the next slide. And maybe I'll just cover this one. Let's see. So some no-cost solutions. So Workforce System provides on-the-job training subsidies, which provide a salary reimbursement to businesses on new hires receiving training. So there is a program for that also, which is on-the-job training. And that has a lot of really good benefits too, and you can partner with someone for that.
When you say on-the-job training, is it skilled training? Is it other training besides just being, you know, is it on-the-job training electrical? Is it on-the-job training mechanical, metal worker? Is it that, you know, that through Workforce?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And let's see, in jobs marketing, stress opportunities to learn multiple industry skills in a small business. Yeah, those are all really good ones. Post positions with community workforce programs, such as Work Now, like we were talking about before too. and attend those hiring fairs. There's lots of industry training hiring fairs. And Construction Careers Now has a website with all of their fairs that are up on there. I believe they have those pretty consistently too, but they're popping up everywhere now. We just went to one on Saturday also. So they're all the time in different neighborhoods, connected to different community programs. And, you know, like I said, can get the word out a lot quicker through community pieces. Yeah, so any other questions or input?
I got one, sorry.
Yeah.
And I just have I have an example. So we've got, you know, the structural steel guy, and they've got a subcontractor, a second tier contractor who's the installer, and he is desperately looking for work. And I'm trying to help him, or workers, you know, and I'm trying to help him in everything that I can find that's part of, you know, that would apply towards the work, the things that I have to abide by, that, you know, my 15% of apprenticeship. It's all union when it's the steel. So he said, but just get me somebody, you know, that I can bring in, and I need labor, I need work, I need help. So is that something? And that's why I said, is it skilled? Do you have people that are skilled to some degree, you know, being an iron worker, that could go and work with him? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one, Lenny, if that's okay. Thank you for overviewing those resources.
Thank you, Lenny.
So with the on-the-job training subsidies, you know, and that is a specific tool that the public workforce system offers, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that. I have seen those work in the past in that exact situation that you're describing, Angela, with graduates of welding programs. There's a number of schools that offer custom welding, as well as traditional like AWS certifications, which are typically what the registered apprenticeships do.
Emily Griffith, I started looking at that.
Emily Griffith is one.
Mm-hmm.
CCD also has a very strong welding program. So does Front Range Community College, which is more in the North Metro area. I would potentially start with those three. There's a private school also, Lincoln, which is on Central 70, close to the Quebec exit, I think it is. Those four schools are going to have graduates, and they're going to have career centers that are looking to connect their graduates and alumni to opportunities. And the way the on-the-job program works is the company gets together with the workforce service, and we have a navigator who's a part of Work Now who sits with Denver Workforce Services. There's one who sits with Arapahoe Douglas as well, which is another regional. They come up together with a training plan that's agreed upon. It's usually up to 6 months or $5,000, whichever comes first based on the wages, the reimbursement. And it's designed for someone who has experience or is brand new, but there's still something specific that they want to learn. So in your case, he can't, in the short turnaround, can't hire someone brand new, but someone who's been working, somebody who's potentially has some working experience and has done a hands-on, 2-year welding program with AWS certifications that are relevant to the kind of iron work that this company is doing is likely going to be a good entry-level person. We know of several companies that have hired that way before.
Okay.
So we'd be happy to make connections for you there. But that's really, the best workforce coordinators and the best human resource individuals that really work on these kind of solutions are problem solvers and create just like that. You think about what the problem is, and you were already starting to go down that path.
Yeah, and he doesn't have anybody in his office, so I'm kind of doing it for him. So I'm thinking, help. Anyways, okay, perfect. So okay.
And I think Sarah probably could speak also to, being a part of a training pipeline program previously to her industry role now, really knowing that those programs love to have employer connections and industry direct connections for not only their graduates, but also their current students, because then their current students, the learning suddenly becomes that much more relevant because they know it's connected to a hiring opportunity or an employment opportunity coming up.
Okay, yeah, and I've already kind of signed on with, or not signed on, but created an account for myself with Emily Griffith. I did that today, so I'll check out the other
Great,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess I would speak to, like, I think Build Colorado is a great website to advertise on. I haven't used you guys' Work Now at all.
mhm.
But then there's another, Connecting Colorado is the State Workforce Board website. I won't say that I've gotten a whole lot of hits off of that. We have something that we use, like military recruitment, that kind of pushes out through that. And we found a lot of guys. We have projects in the springs. So, but yeah, I love all like the CCN and
And
Master's Apprentice, and
we'll have direct links at the end of this presentation, at the end of these slides, to the Build Colorado website, the specific websites that you just mentioned, Sarah. So they'll be here, and we'd be happy to, I'll share my contact information. We'll be happy to email this presentation to anybody who wants those direct links. A collaborative like Work Now, which is a part of 30 programs, if a contractor comes to us, we're going to do things like what we just did with Angela. Well, given that specific need that you have, we recommend you post with X, Y, or Z. So, we're always going to connect you. If someone is coming looking for early stage apprentices or laborers or skilled craft apprentices, because sometimes CCN has alumni, we typically will connect them to CCN or Build Colorado. So we're a coalition that's trying to bring together resources. So we'd connect a contractor directly with one of those partners. One piece I really want to emphasize is this second point. When at the beginning we talked about smaller businesses have this additional challenge of having to compete with an additional other contractors or peer companies. And one thing we consistently hear from workers is that smaller companies offer them the ability to learn multiple types of skills across multiple situations. And we think that is a huge asset compared to, working for a very, very large prime where, you're in and out doing the same thing. And so that's really something to emphasize in how you're attracting talent. And I really appreciate, Angela and Sarah, the other things that you suggested. Did you have something else, Sarah, that you wanted to add?
no. I think, at this point, we're pretty new to the Colorado market. So we've just been turning over a lot of rocks and trying to find what are the best like in-person events to attend. And like, I feel like in-person events are just starting to come back again. But I think the biggest thing for me is like, I feel like everything's online now and it's harder to like really know a person on a screen, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's another dynamic to like finding talent. So yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think what we're hearing from employers who are investing in in-person events is they're also not seeing as many people come. Our takeaway from this is that perhaps job seekers who are looking for work aren't necessarily excited to be in person yet. In that exploration, certainly for interviews and certainly for work, but large scale events where they might be seeing a lot of different people. So, we've heard employers have the most success with connecting to a specific program that's related to what they're looking for, if it's a position with a little more skill or a general industry pre-apprenticeship approved program, if they're looking for entry level.
You guys touched on this a little bit earlier. And now that I'm in like a specific trade, I feel like I don't know how you guys work with like DORA and licensing so like I heard you talk about internships earlier. And so we have looked at bringing on high school interns, but we're worried and we don't have the right legal documents to let them be an intern without having them fall underneath our ratio, I guess.
Mhm.
We think that would be a great way to invest in the future workforce. I don't know if you guys have had success with other people. I know that's kind of the Denver Metro Construction Sector Partnerships baby, but I was just wondering if you guys have anything tools wise for that.
Yeah, well, what we usually share is the resource outline that the Denver Metro Construction Sector Partnership that you mentioned, because their emphasis is youth hiring. They created an excellent sort of 2-pager on how construction companies can use interns effectively, and it's for contractors by contractors. So in that instance, the tips are from the steering committee of the sector partnership, general contractors and specialty contractors who've used high school interns previously. So I find their advice a little bit more targeted. We'd be happy to share that. The other thing I've heard is that some of the specific school districts that have very comprehensive multi-year programs, and the two I hear pretty consistently are Adams Education Consortium and Denver's Career Connects program. CareerWise is also something that works in this, but they don't have as many craft kind of connections, and they're more straight up apprenticeship, whereas Adams and DPS Career Connects do internships. Those two that they have said worked really well in terms of some of the legalities, and, because all of the paperwork rests with the school districts and not with the contractor, not with the employer. So again, happy to make connections. Certainly, as you know, Sarah, AGC has a great program. They would be a third one that we would also recommend, although that is more of a trade association connection. And you'd want to get connected to the direct individual schools there. Let's spend a few minutes talking about another important part of workforce, which is the retention of workforce. So we went through kind of some no cost and low cost solutions around attracting workers, and I really appreciate the tips that you both brought and suggested. But we want to provide an overview and some guidance around what you can do to help retain that talent once they're there. Not only for a specific project, but for your business and industry in general. These kind of retention strategies, help support a healthy and sustainable, stable workforce. And we've seen a couple of things pretty consistently from contractors. And again, we'd invite you to jump in and share other pieces that have really resonated for you. But certainly there's opportunities around skills building. In this market, with the reality that we're all facing, that the number of people looking for open positions is significantly reduced, a huge advantage for a contractor is to hold on to talent that they already have. And one thing you can ask yourself is, what do we do to provide access to skills building and upgrades? How are we making sure that our employees understand how they can grow within our company and how they can grow their own skills? Through a resource like Work Now and other funding partners, there is an opportunity for you to access funding to be able to do this. So, several of our contractor partners this past quarter mentioned that, they had a group of employees that they wanted to move up, but to move to a certain project, they really needed an OSHA 30, and that's a pretty expensive training. They didn't want to pass it on to their employees. They were afraid the employee might jump ship rather than pay for the class out of pocket. But Workforce Resources could pay for that class free. So it's a talent that makes them more valuable to you, and it helps them know that you are invested in their growth and their development, but you're being able to access those resources. And again, there's a number of different ways for contractors to help pay for that, whether it's through specific Workforce Innovation Act funding that's offered through the workforce system. We have a lot of flexible dollars through Work Now. Certainly, if you're a part of a trade association, many of those courses are also offered as a benefit to your membership. So when you're weighing the cost of that, that's something to consider. The other piece that you might consider, if you can't find any of those dollars that are relevant for the training that you want to succeed, that you want your employees to access, if they cover it on their own, what kind of incentive can you give them? We've seen employers give folks a Friday off. We've seen individuals say, well, we can't pay for the class, but we'll pay you for that day as a work day and you go to the training instead. We've also seen, we will just put a bonus onto your next check if you complete that class. And again, in those scenarios, the employee is often paying themselves, but there's an incentive that the company is really clearly saying we value this. And certainly there's opportunities that we already talked about, such as registered apprenticeship, which we believe is a great way to learn a craft, but is also not the only way for employers to develop their talent and their employees. Regardless of what type of skills building opportunity, there's also a couple of general best practices that we've seen in contractors who really effectively retain their talent over the 4 years that WorkNow has been working directly with construction employers. And the first one is really providing access to support for non-work related issues that might be impacting their performance. You don't need to become an expert in this, but you do see a significant increase in employee loyalty when you provide them connection to people who are experts. And this can happen a couple of different ways. There are human resource support groups that typically will charge employers a fee, but they will come in and offer their services on site to help employees work through issues, anything from housing to referrals for counseling and mental health and wellness, drug addiction. We've seen employers pay consultant companies to come in over a lunch hour and do tool talks or trade talks, toolbox talks about health and wellness on the job or different types of stretches to prevent injuries. All of these resources have been incredibly effective. Again, the contractor doesn't necessarily be the expert who knows it all, but is willing to connect their employees to those kinds of resources. WorkNow does have some of those resources available directly at no cost to a contractor. We work with a partner called Work-Life Partnership that can either come on site at a project or meet directly with employees and help do things like cover car payments or car repairs or rental assistance if those are issues that your employees struggle with. And two other pieces that we consistently hear when we understand people are looking for a new job or have decided to leave an employer, two things that we want to share with contractors. The one thing that they'll sometimes say is, I'm leaving because I don't get the check or the wage that we agreed on when we agreed to get it. A really basic thing, and certainly I think employees understand that sometimes project scopes overall can impact the pace of pay or how a small business is getting reimbursed to be able to pay their employees. But it's communicating that when those type of situations arise is critical. And the other piece we hear is really rumors that may or may not be true that the worker has heard about the company, and they can impact your retention as significantly as an actual issue. So it's really critical and important to address those. When we talk about retaining talent, I'm curious to those of you who are here, what are some of the strategies also that you have used? Again, this is an opportunity for us to learn and connect with each other on this particular topic. What are some of the topics that you have, or some of the strategies that you've used to support retention on your projects?
I can't speak to that.
I know one of the things that we're also hearing, I should update this slide, but one of the things that we're also hearing from a new effort that Associated General Contractors is putting together around the culture of care is providing leadership and communication training to mid-level managers as well, to really help eliminate and avoid some of the conflicts that might occur on a project and might cause somebody to walk off or to turn in their notice. and really making sure that, you know, everyone on the team has an agreement around, you know, how they're communicating and that basic understanding how to develop their team. And I think it'll be really interesting to see where that develops and how that moves along. Other ideas that you'd want to share in terms of retaining your talent?
I think Lenny talked a little bit about this earlier, but we have been working on retention bonuses for our teams. We also have incentivized kind of our 30, 60, 90-day meetings with new employees. So they have an opportunity to discuss like a pay increase at that point after they've been with us. Just because everyone says they can plumb doesn't always mean that they can. So we kind of like built that kind of model. We haven't done it long enough to know whether it's working yet, but that is an initiative we're trying.
That's great, Sarah. So when you say you're incentivizing those check-ins, you're like, is that like incentivizing it with food to do the check-in, or incentivizing them with the carrot of, if you complete these, then you can talk to us potentially about a pay bump? How are you incentivizing it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so we're just looking at possibly, saying like, you will get a every 30 days for the next year, you have a check-in with your, supervisor. So you can talk about your training. Like, this is specifically for our apprentices, but you can talk about your training and then also talk about whether your pay is competitive. Because we have a lot of people that come in and they're like, I would like $18 an hour. And we're like, well, you don't have any experience, we can pay you 16, but then in 30 days, like maybe you can talk about, and so that helps us with our cost a little bit. And it also helps us like learn about the person before we go ahead and just, I don't know. So we've been trying to balance that a little bit, because we don't want to say, no, we can't meet you at that pay rate, but here's an opportunity in 60, 90 days to talk about that and renegotiate. And typically we do up their pay at that point, because, and we try to be honest about that and being transparent about that, because we want them to feel incentivized to stay and know that like we are a company that wants to take care of them, I guess.
That's great. That's great. All right, so in our conversation, we've talked about a couple of different solutions and resources. And so we wanted to give you those like very specific links to help you access that information. So around attracting talent and staying up to date on opportunities, one thing you can do is subscribe to the free Work Now employer newsletter. So this is a quarterly update on industry hiring events or upskilling class opportunities that are free, or panels that different training partners are offering where they're looking for employer connections. If you email me at this email, you can get that directly. Again, you don't have to currently be working on a partner project with Workforce Goals. This is just an opportunity to access some of that information. And what we find is contractors are starting to share with each other ideas and suggestions, or, wow, this particular program, is really great for electrical apprentices, or this particular program is really great if you're looking for general laborers. If you need skilled project managers, go here. So there's a real collaboration there. And so that newsletter is certainly something that you can access as a contractor to find not only attraction tools, but also retention tools. Sarah early on had mentioned Build Colorado, and there are, for those of you that hire skilled trades or skilled craft, whether they're entry level or potentially people that have some experience, but not necessarily journey workers. You know, this is more people that may have had some craft experience, or are brand new and, you know, motivated and ready to get to work. They understand what it means to work in construction. There's several pre-apprenticeship programs that we would recommend, and one that consistently offers a hiring affair is Build Colorado. You can see their link there directly to get registered. For small businesses, those events are free. As long as they're virtual, they're free for everyone. But at some point when they return to in-person, general contractors likely do pay a small fee for participating in those hiring fairs. But this is a great opportunity to connect with people that have just completed a 40-hour pre-apprenticeship program. And again, you know, we find pretty consistently there are some individuals that have had some hiring experience or some construction work experience there. It's not all people who are brand new to the industry. But that is one specific event that, you know, we pretty consistently hear from contractors is a frequent connection that they like to tap into when they have a hiring cycle. If you were intrigued and want to learn a little bit more about the on-the-job training subsidy program that Lenny had mentioned, we do have the details on that program here from DITO, the office that Duante's in. And Duante, please do feel free if there's anything else you wanted to say about the OJT to jump in on that. This is multiple industry, as I said, for construction specifically. It's typically a reimbursement back to the employer of up to $5,000 of paid wages, or up to 6 months, you know, whichever cap is hit first. And that's for an agreed upon training program for the person. This is a really valuable resource for contractors, particularly ones that have the type of hiring need. They will work with you to recruit and fill that position. You interview, you select, you choose the candidates. And you can find some general information there, or we can connect you directly to that navigator. I will stress that if you're not a business located in Denver, that's still a resource you can access. And other counties also offer the same resource, or for whatever reason, if their funds are low, they can connect you with a colleague from another county that also supports any business regardless of where it's located. This is a great resource. And Duante, I think, has something else to add to that.
Katrina, you covered a lot of information. And what I would tell all the contractors, or if you're going to go for it, to definitely lean in on some of the community organizations that's in Denver. They will definitely be a huge asset for you and get you tapped into a lot of those hard to reach populations. So I really would say tap into those community resources, because the community nonprofit community organizations are very tight, and having someone or having an in will definitely get you a long way.
That's a great point. And I think particularly for those of you who have started working on a project that already does have workforce requirements and might be having, you know, specific target populations. Again, a real quick, you know, phone call or coffee, we can point you in the right direction of community organizations that do support specific populations. Many of our local community partner organizations provide generalized workforce development and career support, where they're providing stabilization upfront before someone's going out and looking for work, and addressing whatever family needs that family may have. And those are more general, but then they would have specific programs also that focus on specific populations, including justice involved or reentry individuals, including veterans, including women, including individuals that previously experienced housing challenges. A lot of really tremendous community resource programs that are working in partnership to ensure that person is a successful employee for you. And related to that, there's quite a few general resource sites or support organizations. Oh, let's see if I can go back to this link here. That again, you as a contractor don't necessarily need to have expertise in all of these areas, but you may run into an employee or a potential employee who has shown up, is ready to go, but their car needs a repair, or they need boots to get to work or something like that. And those community partners that Duante mentioned can be a great asset there, as well as to provide easy to access web information for somebody who prefers to search things out in particular. I have links in this presentations to 2 sites. One is Mile High United Way's 211 program, if you're not familiar. The other is a resource website from a group called Aunt Bertha called Find Help. And this allows workers to specifically choose based on where they live and also, you know, what their specific need is. So if I want to search for, you know, food resources in 80216, you know, it's going to prioritize, it's going to show me different options. Actually, I think it just showed me the food and not the zip code prioritization.
Might have to stop share and reshare to show the Bertha site, Katrina.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I will go back to the presentation then. But you know, in this, if you email us for the presentation, again, 2 direct web links that really give you an overview to the wonderful resources, and that either your human resources team could dig into if there's an employee that has a specific problem, or they can share it directly with their employee. And those are all important pieces there for you to be able to access. So let me see what questions came in on the chat. Oh, Sarah, sorry you had spotty internet. All right, let me jump back to resources. Okay, are you back on the final tools you can use?
What did you say, Katrina?
I just wanted to see if we went back to that final slide, but I can see that we did not, because I'm
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't know. The answer is no.
so that actually was the final slide. So I think we could use the time that we have left to first of all, additional tools that you potentially have used to help attract or retain workers. I think, you know, for many of us bidding in the Metro Denver area, the most likely workforce piece that you are going to see as a contractor is around those target populations that Duante mentioned. And so we'd be happy to spend a couple minutes, you know, digging into specific resources or specific challenges that you might be having on a project, or as you prepare for a project right now, with those target population organizations, who you can connect with, who you might want to work with. And between Lenny and Duante and I, we can get you connected to some people that can help with that. Alternatively, we could also dig into some specific questions you have back in the beginning about workforce requirements and how you might help your company respond to those more effectively if you feel like you keep getting into situations like Duante outlined, where people are promising the moon and then we get the bid and we don't have the infrastructure to be able to do it.
Right. And I know that we did a hard bid, so I don't even know what that looked like, if they did any predictions or estimates or anything. I don't know what that looked like. So I can't answer to that as well, you know, on the front end. I do know at this point in time, though, that, you know, if and when we bid another project like this, I'm stepping in the front end and gonna understand the, you know, what the requirements are from the beginning. So, and make sure that all the subcontractors understand the requirements from the beginning and that they're on board. So.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that you found, Angela? So you said you've learned some things and you would like to step in a little bit more. What are some ways that you've learned to connect effectively with other contractors on the project in terms of making sure they understand the requirements and what it is they can do and where they can go to get resources to help?
Katrina, it's been very difficult. Again, when you have a hard bid, it's a package already delivered,
Mhm.
and so you're kind of backing in. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is I'm backing in. So there's a lot of great resources that you have. And given the opportunity to deal with that and understand that in the beginning, makes all the difference in the world. I'm saying that for me is the biggest portion, is just having that dialogue and understanding at the gate. That's important. That's the difficulty, is not all being on the same page. I've reached out to everyone. I've made them understand what the requirements are, and they all have pretty good, well, we're going to be in a week, we're going to be gone. What, how can I hire someone to work on this project when I'm going to be here a couple of weeks and then I'm going back to Colorado Springs? And then, how do we do that? And I don't have a valid answer for that. Some of these contractors, being that it's just a 1-year project, they only have a couple hundred hours on the project altogether. So what my dream would be is if you had a workforce temp service agency. That I'm serious, so that we would keep these people on the job, and then they can go from trade to trade or figure something out like that. That would, for the smaller projects that don't have a lot of, the apprenticeship program, we're all in on that. It's just that it has to also work.
Well, funny.
Go ahead.
Funny you should raise that question, Angela. But there are at least 2 community organizations that have developed exactly that, that we would be happy to connect you with. And I suspect Dewante would be delighted to tell you about one of them, because he really played a lead role in building it out.
Oh, okay. Because just side note before we go there, Dewante, is that I have touched base with several, I've talked with Goodwill. I've talked with several other people and my subcontractors. And one of the things that I have thought of doing and I'm working on is I have a temp agency that FCI works with. And she already works with some workforce programs. And so she was going to take it on as the employer so that she could get people on board and work it out that way with the subcontractors to get, because what I'm trying to do at this point, if I can't get, or I'm working on getting the apprenticeship, I can also make sure that people in the community are on the job working. So, I'm trying to target that as well. And so she is going to help me with that. But you tell me, Dewante, what's the other stuff?
So actually, before I took this role, I was the director of, are you familiar with Bayard Enterprises?
Yeah, I was there the other night, last Wednesday night. So I saw Bayard.
So I was actually the director of Bayard Works, and we were in the process of actually doing the apprenticeship. I'm sorry, it just lost my mind.
I know. Right?
The temp to hire services, what we're doing. And I had laid down the foundation of that. And I know that because did you talk to Tammy when you were there?
Yes.
So that's going to be definitely the person to talk to. And I'm guessing she gave you a ton of information about the temp to hire, right?
Well, she was busy talking with a lot of folks. She gave me a brochure and I looked it up online. And Dewante, just to be honest with you, temp to hire, I don't, with some of these contractors, that means that somebody's going to have to hire them.
Well, no. And I'm using the wrong term because it's slipped my mind, but it's more of a temporary agency is what they're looking at. And that was the reason what we did. So temp to hire is one of the components, but at the same time, if we can get people some opportunities and experience to go into it. So there's all kind of avenues to get the population that you're looking for.
Okay. All right. So then that would be a good resource.
Yeah, I would, if you haven't, and I can, because I'm still really close with the executive director, get you connected on setting up a time with her to figure something out, because that was something that we were looking at. Before I left, and the projections and the forecasts we were looking at for this year was at least trying to get, the people that we're working with, I think it was close to 80,000 hours a month or something like that. It was it was a lot, and I know that they got people, so we can. I mean, they can definitely. I'm saying we as I'm still there, but they can
Well,
definitely.
we're kind of all we, but okay.
So it's definitely like that's one of the places to plug into. Katrina knows some different areas. Like it all goes down to, and I really emphasize is linking up with the community organizations in Denver. You will get spiderwebbed in all different assets areas of Denver that you're having a hard time penetrating.
Okay. All
And
right.
I would say, one piece of advice that we would share, for contractors that might decide, for my particular project, I am working on a project with workforce requirements. The nature of the scope necessitates that we need to look at some of this a little bit differently. If a staffing solution, makes sense for you, we would ask you to also just go back and think of the intended goal of the workforce policies as also to help ensure and incentivize more equitable development, whether it's business development or workforce training. So if that's the right solution for you, every right policy needs to have a win-win, right? If that's the win for you, we would encourage you to think about how can we ensure, exactly as you said, Angela, that our staffing agency is connected to those other resources. So when that person's time on this project is done, they potentially could stay with this agency and go to another project, or they could get linked to one of these workforce programs and get upskilling and training at no cost to them. So their next position, they can be earning more money.
Okay.
Or they have a position to go to after that temporary position. So it's not just, oh, I started my construction career and 6 weeks later I'm done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay.
The benefit of a network like this is then they can find that next project. So it's not to say that's not a solution, because for a workforce policy to work, it has to truly help a contractor perform the requirements of the project. But it works best if you can also partner it, either use an agency from a supportive service group, or if you have a private staffing company you like to work with, that's great. Again, our first recommendation to you was assess your strengths, assess who you already have at the table, and is there a way to extend that relationship?
Gotcha.
Can you invite that staffing person to a mixer where they get to know some of these other organizations and other opportunities, so that there's a benefit for the worker also?
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
That's a great great solution.
Well, it is. That could be for a big problem, just because I'm, there are requirements, and some of them I know are just going to be a little bit tougher than others based on the project. And I'm just, racking my brains how to make it work with a person. You don't want, just like what you said, comes to the job, works hard 6 weeks, and then what? That was frustrating as well. So, and that's why I went with the TEP agency and seeing where we can go with that, because she's going to also look for people within the area, and she'll keep them on her staff as well. So that once, if I've got a subcontractor that isn't going to use them, I know that they're going to go somewhere else. So anyways, thank you.
That's great. That's great. So I'm just going back to our, I noticed that we had a few late joiners. I'm just going back to our agenda for the evening to make sure we captured everything. I believe Sarah had to step off and sends her thank yous to everyone. But we spent some time again talking about, what are the kind of workforce requirements that you as a contractor are going to start seeing. Some of you have shared you're already seeing target outreach goals on some of the projects you're working with, particularly on airport projects or City of Denver projects. Some of you are also seeing apprenticeship utilization and geographic neighborhood focus requirements. Those are showing up more on DOT projects, also on municipal projects and some private projects. And the goal of all of this work, again, is to really find, what is that benefit for the contractor and what is that benefit for the worker? And unless you have more specific custom questions, now that we can dig into a little bit more on what some of those workforce resources are that can help you, I think our time together, we've gone through the requirements and gone through the resources. I think the main points that we wanted to cover this evening are done, and we can give you some time back in your evening. At the same time, we're also happy to really dig into, because we are a smaller group, custom solutions or questions if you have those, particularly those of you that joined late, because you were likely operating your businesses. All right, if there aren't specific questions, then what I'd like to propose is this. You took the time to register for a specific Contractor Academy course. And what we'd like to do is connect a little bit with you each one-on-one. So our team is going to follow up with those of you who attended individually. If you could put your email in the chat, we can connect with you a little bit afterwards, not today, but this week by Friday, to understand more if there was any specific resource you needed during this session that you want to know more about. Also, if you'd like to get the presentation, so you have those direct links to those resources that we talked about for attracting and retaining your workforce, we'd be happy to send that to you directly. So feel free to put your email in the chat if you'd like to get a copy of that presentation directly. And then Lenny, Dewante, and I will also look at who should call whom for your follow-up custom session to help you attract and retain the workforce that's going to help your company grow and help you respond successfully to projects that have workforce goals and workforce hiring requirements. We really appreciate you taking the time this evening to join us and share your knowledge. Angela, I see, and can you help me with your first name, Mr. Moreno with Iron Woman? I believe.
Sorry, Katrina. I was trying to hit the unmute button, and then you went on, and then you just kept going on, so I didn't want to interrupt. But I wanted to say thank you for the presentation. Very good information. I put my email in there. Omar Moreno, Vice President, HEC, Hispanic Contractors of Colorado. And yeah, this is just definitely a topic that everybody is definitely struggling with, right? People. I mean, how can we clone people to make more? But no, thank you. And what I'm looking for is basically, the help that you guys provide, the grants that you guys have. And we just have I'm chair or assistant chair of our small business roundtable, and this is what we've been talking about, is basically, what can we do to help get more people in, which I loved. The other idea came in on, you guys having your own temp agency. Wouldn't that be awesome, right? You can just call up, hey, I need 2 people today, and they just show up. But no, great information. And basically coming back to my topic is, where's that money that you guys are getting from grants? How can we pull for more? Because now you're starting to hear that there's a lot of different cities across the nation that have all these CARES money and all these grant money that's not being used. So, how can we go out there and attract people for that? But no, I want to thank you for that great presentation.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Omar. And I think you make a great point that the businesses who need some of these resources the most are often typically smaller businesses, and often typically are also the ones that can't necessarily take the time to do the paperwork to get the resource that they need. So what we really like to stress, particularly with the kind of workforce, I want to be clear, Work Now is not the only solution we're recommending here. We're talking about a lot of different ones. But with a coalition that has a lot of different partners, chances are when somebody brings up a problem like Angela just did, somebody at the round table has a solution for you for it. And so our goal is then, okay, let us do that legwork for you. Let us do that paperwork to save you time, and then just get you connected with the 1 or 2 things that are going to be most effective for you. Those dollars currently are coming down through a couple of different ways. You know, a lot of training programs have scholarships for people. So if you have a new employee that needs some development, you know, there's a really high chance that we can find training to help support that person. The other piece is, you know, supportive services and stipends and different things like that. You know, Work Now has city dollars and also private foundation dollars to help do that. And, you know, we're really looking at, with pre-apprenticeship programs and with many partners, like, how do we scale, you know, these large, you know, we're not talking about just a few workers, particularly for smaller businesses. This is a significant, you know, thousands of workers. And we're only going to be able to hire from each other for so long, right? We're going to have to develop the new talent, and these dollars can be used to take on that cost risk for an employer. So you don't have to hire someone potentially not tested. You know, we did recommend tonight a couple of different strategies that you might be able to employ to get somebody that's newer through friends and family referrals and text campaigns and banners, signs at your job sites. But another good thing to do is to go to these graduates of these pre-apprenticeship programs, go to these partnership programs that we can connect you with, the community partner organizations, where someone else has already paid for them to get some of that initial foundational piece, and they already know that they like construction, and that reduces some of the risk for a small business in particular. You know, that's tough if you spend 3 days training someone and then they don't show up the fourth day.
Well, the other thing, Katrina, is we, you know, tech schools, high school, this year's, actually, I always say last year, but it was this May that they graduated. There was, just out of Innovative Campus, every single student that went to a construction course at tech schools had a job. 100% of them had a job offer, and only 27% took it.
Wow. Yep.
So how do, you know, when it comes back to not only culture and, you know, when employees are out there selling the company or bad talking the company, is how do you do that to start that culture as well, so it can roll on and people go, hey, you want to work for these people. This is where you want to be.
Absolutely. And that is hard. I think, you know, that's when there's a benefit of tapping into some of the work that larger coalitions of employers are doing, or contractors, because that is really about messaging, right? Helping people understand, do you really want to turn down that job offer you got in a growing industry with a job that will likely never be outsourced, and will continue to be high wage and growth, and offers one of the greatest pathways to entrepreneurship and business ownership across multiple industries. This is you mentioned CARES funding. You know, there's a couple of efforts by large public coalitions, chambers, also workforce sector partnerships that are led by some trade associations to really do some general industry recruiting and messaging. And one thing that we maybe could suggest to those groups is thinking about, you know, can they create some collateral and some talking points to share with small businesses? So again, you don't have to spend the money on the marketing that's going to attract folks, but you could get some of these templates to have these pieces. Those are great points. Thank you, Omar. And again, if we follow up with each of you individually, we'll be able to talk, you know, that maybe there's also several business applications that companies can apply for directly to get training resources to customize training for your own company. That grant application is pretty easy for businesses, pretty minimal paperwork, and that could be an easy solution for you as well. And we can go over some other additional ones. Willard, thank you for adding your email. So what we'll be doing, Lane, do you mind while we do our closeout, is there any way you can capture these emails? I tried to just copy the chat and it won't let me do it, and I don't want to get distracted. Thank you. So you'll hear from us directly before Friday, and we can, schedule some one-on-one time and really continue to build out these resources. We'd encourage you, if you think of top tips that you didn't share when we were kind of doing a peer-to-peer exchange earlier, do share them, and we'll add them to inform future presentations. And if we get them before Thursday, I'll add them to this presentation before I send them to you as well. And again, Dewante and Lenny and I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your support and interest in building your own knowledge in this area, and your willingness to share your expertise and knowledge with others. And we also appreciate your support of Contractor Academy and participating in this course. We hope it's been valuable to you.
It has. Thank you.
Great. And I'll go ahead and reshare my screen and finish closing out. And then too, I would also like to thank everybody for attending, especially Katrina, Lenny, and Dewante. It was nice to meet you both. So thank you. We do have a couple of more training courses coming up within the next couple of months. The next one is our design and build class. It's going to be with Kiewit and Gilmore on August 24th. And we also have understanding plans and specs, part 1 and 2 in September 14th for part 1, and September 21st for part 2. And then be sure to follow us on social media and tag us. And then we hope to see you at the next class. And thank you all again for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thanks. Look forward
Bye-bye.
to connecting afterwards.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.